Living here for 20 years has given me a real insight as to why the artists have loved living and working here in St Ives for about 80 years or even longer. Surrounded by sea on three sides, as we are in West Penwith, the wind is always changing, the weather forming as the wind across the Atlantic meets the land. And the important thing every morning is to assess the day's weather and think about the light. People often think that light is a kind of a chocolate, beautiful and precious thing which one can enjoy, but it's not really that at all. It's a very hard master and teacher. So often one is satisfied with forms and textures on a grey day, and then when the full sun and clear brilliance, which we have very often here, when it arrives and you look at the forms, they don't seem strong enough, or pure, or strong and tight enough, and one has to work to intensify and release the forms. I have found this particularly interesting because learning carving, as I did out in Italy, I began very early to consider the forms in relation to the sun. Coming from the grey, what seemed to me very grey light of Yorkshire, it was a revelation working in the Mediterranean as a student. And here in St Ives, I appreciate every moment of the brilliance and clarity for the forms, for the space that one wants to make within the forms and through the forms. And again, here in West Penwith, there is a great similarity with the light and quality which I appreciated when I was out in Greece and in the Aegean. One thing struck me very forcibly when I was there, and that was the emphasis of the human figure in the landscape, or related to the sea. And here I have found so often that very same emphasis. The human figure standing out on the rocks assumes a great vertical proportion of direct importance, historically and humanly, or, as one might well be, the figure oneself, recumbent in the landscape or walking over the forms of the hills. One begins to contemplate the human form in relation to sculpture, which perhaps sounds odd, coming from one who, as I do, carves chiefly abstract forms. But the inspiration always comes either from the artist in the landscape, feeling it, becoming it, or the spectator observing the figure in the landscape. And these qualities, I think, are of profound importance to the sculptor.
Dame Barbara Hepworth describes her love for St Ives, the Cornish fishing port where she chose to make her home, like so many artists before her, 25 years ago.
I was brought up in the industrial north, and then I lived for 15 years in Hampstead and worked there. But having once experienced living in natural surroundings and with the sea, I realized how much this sort of lay in my background and had picked up with my childhood. And here, it's not only the marvelous light and the fact that that I've got more warmth so that I can carve out in the winter, which you certainly couldn't do in London, because your hands would stick to the steel tools. But there is a comprehensible community, not just artists, but all people, writers and musicians, and all the local people who have such a natural perception